Hello chess friends and welcome to the channel. Today is rest day at the Tata Steel 2019, but yesterday Ding Liren, winning his game, became co-leader of the tournament with Nepomniachtchi. In today's video I'm going to show you the game Shankland vs Ding, a beautiful and instructive Ruy Lopez dominated by the black player. Let's start with the game. Shankland opens with e4 and Ding answers with e5, knight to f3, knight to c6 and bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez. a6, threatening the bishop that moves back to a4, knight to f6, attacking the pawn, and castle for white. We are in the Murphy defense, not in the Berlin defense. And why black in this type of position doesn't capture now with the knight on the pawn? Of course, some capture, but this is not the most played move. Why? The move is perfectly playable, but with the bishop in a4 instead of b5, something changes. White, for example, can completely avoid the endgame. Let's watch some lines together. Now, if knight captures on e4, here comes d4. Capturing now is the worst of the two lines that I'm going to show you, because white can play rook to e1, here comes d5, protecting the knight, that was pinned of course, and after knight capture in d4, this line gives something more to white. If we go back some moves, after d4, the best reaction by black is b5, attacking again the bishop, and so the bishop doesn't attack the knight anymore, and the knight after d5 won't be pinned. Bishop to b3, now d5, protecting the knight. Here comes d captures on e5, and you see that two pieces are attacking the pawn. Bishop to e6, but also this line seems to be a bit better for white. So that's why we don't see so often, like in the Berlin defense, this knight capture on e4. Let's go back to our game. In fact, after white castle, Ding plays bishop to e7, that is the main line. Here comes rook to e1, protecting the pawn. There is the same problem that there is in many lines of the Ruy Lopez, that now if white captures, the pawn falls down because it can be captured by the knight, and so black plays b5, bishop to b3, now castle for black, and h3. Bishop to b7, indirectly adding a second attacker to the pawn, and Shankland plays d3. d6. Now, after d6, this pawn is protected, and so the knight could jump to a5, trying to exchange the left square bishop. So now it's time for white to create an escape route for his bishop. c3, clearing the c2 square for the bishop. Knight to a5, attacking the bishop, and the bishop goes back to c2. c5, gaining space on the queen side, and now also the knight can go back to c6 without blocking the pawn. Knight in b goes to d2, starting the classical knight maneuver. Rook to e8, knight to f1, h6, this is all theory, and now generally the knight goes to g3. Shankland moves the knight to e3, a perfectly good move. Now bishop to f8, because now the bishop doesn't interfere anymore with the rook, with the action of the rook in the center, and it adds a protection to the castle. In this position I have more than 50 games, and generally the idea of the white player is to play knight to h2. And why? Because here comes d5, knight in h goes to g4, and if black captures on e4, here comes d recaptures. The knight can't capture now, because there is this beautiful little combination. Knight captures on h6 we check, g recaptures, and queen to g4 we check. Also add a second attack to the knight, and the piece is regained with some quite good advantage for white. So that's why after d recapture on e4, black doesn't capture but the pawn, but captures the knight. The best line for black is, knight captures on g4, queen recapture on g4, and white has a bit of initiative in this continuation. But Shankland doesn't play knight goes to h2. He plays b4, attacking the knight. I have only one game in my database played by the great Nesmedinov in 1964. That game was a draw. Here comes c capture on b4, c recapture on b4, attacking the knight, knight to c6. Here comes a3, but after this little change, you see that something wrong happened for white. That the c file becomes open, and you already can see that the only one that can conquer the file is the black player with one simple rook move. White player has these two bishops in an odd position in the middle of the two rooks. And so this is the first thing that will favor black in this line. Here comes d5. Knight to g4 is a little inaccurate, it was better to capture. Knight captures on g4 and h captures on g4. D capture on e4, d recaptures on e4, the queen go out of the board, queen captures on d1, rook captures on d1, and here comes a5. B captures on a5, maybe it's another little inaccuracy, and here comes knight captures in a5, and the knight can decide to jump to the outpost if needed. Now, in this position, black becomes surely better, and you see again that these two bishops are still here between the rooks. Rook to b1, attacking the pawn, bishop to c6, protecting the pawn. There is no way to keep attacking this pawn, because in case of bishop to d3, there is knight to c4, and if bishop capture and b recapture, losing the bishop pair in this open position is a capital sin that will lose the game in few moves. That you already see that these black bishop are very active, and they are attacking a lot of dangerous points in white position. So going back to the actual game, after bishop to c6, knight to d2, here comes rook to d8, king to f1, knight to b7, rook to b3, protecting the pawn that was under attack by the rook and the bishop, and bishop to d7 clears the c file with tempo because the bishop is attacking the g4 pawn. f3, and rook to c8 with the black rook that now controls the c file, attacking the unprotected bishop, and these two bishops are still here between the rooks, and they interfere with their coordination. Bishop to b1, b4, and this is a useful move because white must do something. If not, the bishop will move to a4 and it will give the skewer, winning the quality. So the rook moves back to b2. Here comes bishop to a4, attacking the other rook on the one, rook to e1, and rook to c7, probably with the idea of doubling the rooks on the c file. But after bishop to a2, with the idea to give some scope to this bishop, here comes the tactical shot. B captures on a3, attacking the rook, rook to b6, bishop to c5, activating the bishop with tempo. Of course, the rook can't move to a6 because there is bishop to b5, we check that is a fork, and so the rook after bishop to c5 must go back. Here comes bishop to c2, again attacking the rook, and white resigns, because if rook to a1, here comes bishop to d3 with check, the king can't move anywhere, the rook on e1 must move to e2, where she sits there, pinned, and bishop to d4, attacking the second rook, with the other rook attacking the bishop. This is total domination, and Shankland resigned before these 2-3 moves. So it was a beautiful game by Ding, that in my opinion can be Carlsen's most dangerous opponent. Let's remember that Samuel Shankland is playing fantastic chess lately, and he is at the peak of his career. A strong player, always improving his skills and his rating, so it's not simple to win against Shankland. Our analysis is over. I hope that you appreciate the game. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. For now, thanks for watching and goodbye.